The research vessel Cosmodiological Inquiry floated in a steady orbit above Earth, its sleek contours glinting against the stars. Inside its polished halls, a bustling team of alien scientists prepared for their most ambitious project yet replicating human cuisine. In the heart of the vessel's primary lab, chief culinary scientist Urix, a towering Galaxian with chitinous plates that shimmered in iridescent colors, adjusted his nutrient regulators and signaled for attention. Today, he declared, with his mandibles clicking in excitement, we delve into the mysteries of human food. If we can understand how they derive sustenance and pleasure from their baffling culinary concoctions, perhaps we will unlock new pathways to resilience, adaptability, and survival itself. The assembled team of scientists, an eclectic mix of species with scales, tendrils, gelatinous forms, and even a few beings that shimmered between solid and vapor states, buzzed with excitement. In the midst of the gathered researchers stood Dr. Benjamin Ben Wheeler, the vessel's human cultural consultant and the unwitting key to their experiments. Ben, a wiry man in his early 30s with perpetual stubble and an easygoing smile, leaned against a countertop, arms folded as he took in the scene with the bemusement of someone about to witness delightful chaos. "All right," Chief Urix Ben said with a grin. "What's on today's menu of madness?" Urix's three eyes glowed with enthusiasm. "We shall begin by replicating the human substance known as hot sauce. Our preliminary research suggests it causes intense sensations in your kind, bordering on physical discomfort." Ben let out a laugh. "Oh, you have no idea." The aliens huddled, their appendages twitching as they reviewed their data on Earth peppers. Glorf, a squat, amphibious researcher with a glossy, slime-covered hide, approached carrying what looked like a pepper-shaped object floating in a containment field. "This, according to our records, is a bell pepper. It seems to be the foundation of their fiery cuisine." Ben nearly choked on his own laughter. "Bell pepper? Oh, no. If you want real heat, you need something spicier. I'm talking chili peppers, jalapenos, maybe even habaneros if you're feeling brave." Confusion rippled through the lab. Urix's antennae waved in mild distress, but the data suggested. "Yeah, bell peppers are mild. I'd say start with jalapenos." Ben's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Trust me." With cautious agreement, the aliens sourced a collection of spicier peppers, including a curious crimson variety known as the Blazing Star from the planet Varga IV, notorious for its intense heat. Ben watched as they ground, mixed, and simmered ingredients with precision bordering on reverence. The concoction bubbled ominously, filling the room with a potent aroma that caused several researchers to instinctively back away. "Careful with that one," Ben advised, his voice laced with mock seriousness. "Humans have a love-hate relationship with heat." The mixture was complete, and Urix approached with a small metallic spoon filled with the seething red liquid. "We shall proceed with a test." Ben nodded, already reaching for a sample. He took a spoonful, swallowed, and immediately felt the familiar burn race down his throat. His eyes watered, and he coughed, but a grin spread across his face. "Yep, that's the stuff." The aliens watched, horrified. Glorf took a trembling step forward. Is it toxic?" "Not exactly," Ben replied, reaching for some water. "But it can feel that way." With hesitance born of scientific rigor, Urix dipped a single appendage into the mixture and touched it to his mandibles. His body convulsed, smoke curling out of various joints. Glorf fainted on the spot, collapsing into a puddle of slime. A crystalline researcher named Klex emitted a high-pitched whine as their form cracked and shivered in sympathy. Ben sprang to action, dragging Glorf out of harm's way while patting Urix on the back. "Breathe, buddy. You'll get used to it, maybe." When the commotion subsided, Urix wheezed, his vocal modulators strained. Human resilience must be tested further. The experimentation continued with even greater intensity. Urix and his team, determined not to be bested by an earth condiment, sourced hotter and more volatile ingredients. The results were mixed. Some mixtures produced acceptable levels of burn, while others emitted plumes of fire or caused the tasting apparatus to disintegrate. One particular batch, containing extracts from multiple intergalactic spices, spontaneously ignited upon completion. Ben dove for cover as the lab filled with acrid smoke, leaving a blackened scorch mark on the floor. This might be a sign you're overdoing it. Urix's exoskeleton was scorched in several places, but his determination was unwavering. If humans can consume this, we must understand why. Maybe it's about the thrill Ben suggested, or the endorphins. Either way, next time let's make sure the fire extinguishers are working. Undaunted by their incendiary experiences, the team shifted their focus to a new and equally perplexing concept: deep frying. Ben described it with an enthusiasm that made several researchers blanch. The idea of submerging food in scalding oil seemed reckless, but Urix nodded with determination. We will recreate this deep frying ritual. Vats of oil were heated under Glorf's supervision, who nervously monitored temperature gauges while muttering about pressure thresholds. The first test involved simple vegetables coated in batter. Ben demonstrated how to lower them into the oil, which crackled and popped as the moisture met the heat. Within moments, the lab filled with an aroma so tantalizing that even the scent-averse aliens paused to inhale. Ben pulled out a golden, crispy piece. See? Perfect. Urix, curious but wary, observed. You willingly risk exposure to volatile oils for such results. Absolutely, Ben replied. Nothing beats the crunch. As the researchers prepared to taste, the unexpected occurred: an alien root vegetable from the Mekon system, selected for its dense composition, began reacting violently upon immersion. The oil frothed and hissed, growing unstable. Glorf's panicked shout of temperature spike was barely heard before a geyser of molten oil erupted, coating the room in sizzling fragments. Ben, grabbing Glorf out of harm's way again, managed to shield himself with a heat-resistant panel. Urix and the others were not so lucky. When the chaos subsided, a few unfortunate researchers stood immobilized, encased in rapidly cooling fried crust. Ben scratched his head as he helped pry them out. I think we need to rethink the ingredient choices. Still determined, Urix declared that balance was the key to human cuisine. Under Ben's guidance, they introduced sweetness, acidity, and texture to temper their fiery creations. Progress was slow, but gradually they achieved sauces and dishes that elicited appreciation rather than screams. Urix even developed a fondness for a smoky sauce that nearly melted his taste receptors. Just when they thought they had mastered human cuisine, Ben introduced them to chili. The idea of blending spices, meat, and beans or alien equivalents in a slow-cooked dish intrigued Urix. The scientists worked with obsessive dedication, each adding their own twist: alien herbs that glowed, oils that altered density, and proteins sourced from distant star systems. The grand culmination was a chili cook-off, judged by Ben. Glorf's chili bubbled dangerously, emitting occasional bursts of plasma. Urix's was a controlled inferno that singed anyone who approached too closely. A competitor from engineering added a rare gravity-enhancing bean, causing his batch to collapse into a localized singularity. For several tense minutes, a swirling mass of ingredients threatened to devour everything before collapsing harmlessly upon itself. Ben, always willing to try a bite, ladled out a portion and tasted it with a thoughtful expression. Not bad, he said as he floated in the microgravity pocket it created. Need salt. As the lab erupted into chaos once more, Urix knew they had only scratched the surface of human culinary resilience. But one thing was clear for humans: danger was just another spice. Ben, still floating in the microgravity pocket generated by the ill-fated chili experiment, gave a hearty laugh as he drifted past Urix, who was struggling to recalibrate his senses. The alien scientists, many of them slightly singed or covered in splatters of experimental sauce, exchanged looks that conveyed a mix of awe and resignation. Culinary science had never been so dangerous or so enlightening. As Ben eventually touched down, Urix's mandibles clicked in frustration, but there was also a glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. Mr. Wheeler, I must admit, human cuisine defies all logic. Your species turns the act of eating into a test of resilience and survival. Ben clapped Urix on what he assumed was the alien equivalent of a shoulder. That's the spirit, Urix. You can't appreciate life until you've flirted with spontaneous combustion over dinner. Despite the recent chaos, the team wasn't ready to give up. Urix, determined to uncover every facet of human cuisine, proposed a more structured approach. Ben would lead them through a series of traditional Earth dishes, each one escalating in complexity and potential hazard. Their first task, baking. Surely, they reasoned, baking would provide a less explosive challenge. The lab was transformed into a makeshift bakery. Kneading dough was a baffling process for many of the aliens, who lacked the limbs necessary for such intricate work. Glorf, for instance, attempted to knead, using his slimy appendages only to coat himself entirely in flour and stick to the ceiling when startled by an accidental puff of yeast. Urix supervised with a stern gaze, making note of every step. Ben, meanwhile, effortlessly guided them through the creation of bread and pastries. The key is patience, he said, shaping a ball of dough. You let it rise, bake it evenly, and voila, you've got yourself something delicious. To their relief, the bread emerged from the oven golden and fragrant. The aliens marveled at its simplicity and taste. Encouraged, Urix wanted more. Ben Urix said, enthusiasm radiating from his iridescent plates, what would be the next logical challenge? Something that encapsulates the human spirit of determination. Ben thought for a moment, a mischievous glint in his eyes. How about soufflé? But be warned, this one's tricky. The preparation began. Eggs were cracked, ingredients were whipped, and everyone moved on tiptoe, aware that one wrong move could spell disaster. As the soufflé baked, the tension was palpable. Glorf nervously checked the oven window, his gelatinous form vibrating. When the timer beeped, Ben carefully opened the door, holding his breath. It's perfect, he whispered. Just as the team erupted into cheers, a wayward vibration caused by an overenthusiastic Glorf accidentally knocking over a tray of measuring cups sent the soufflé collapsing in an instant. The aliens' collective groan was loud enough to shake the walls. Ben shrugged, unfazed. That's soufflé for you. It's a metaphor for life, fragile, unpredictable, but worth the effort. A few days later, the scientists turned to grilling. At Ben's urging, they constructed an outdoor grilling station in one of the ship's open-air domes, adjusting for simulated Earth atmosphere and gravity. Urix was determined to master this barbecue ritual, which Ben assured him was at the heart of many human gatherings. Barbecue is all about community and smoky flavor, Ben explained, slapping a chunk of marinated alien meat substitute onto the grill. You don't rush it, you let the flavors mingle, give it time. Under Ben's guidance, the aliens soon produced a variety of charred meats, vegetables, and unidentifiable proteins. The grilling station became a source of pride, drawing researchers from across the ship to try their hand at the human way. But trouble loomed when Glorf, in a bid to outshine Ben's smoky masterpiece, introduced a substance called Zorn fuel, a highly combustible alien oil known for enhancing flame intensity. When he drizzled it over the grill, the flames roared to life with such ferocity that they breached the protective dome and sent a bright beacon of fire spiraling into the cosmos. Glorf, Ben said, shielding his eyes. I think you overdid it. Glorf, now slightly charred and very apologetic, croaked, I wanted to achieve the perfect sear. It took hours to extinguish the fire, during which time several more aliens learned the hard way why humans preferred their fire under control. When the smoke cleared, Urix, now adorned with singed plates, turned to Ben with an exasperated sigh. How do your people continue to survive, given the inherent danger of your food practices? Urix demanded. Good question, Ben replied, rubbing his chin. Maybe it's because the risk makes it taste better. In a final bid to master human cuisine, Urix called for a grand banquet that would include every dish they had attempted: the sauces, the fried concoctions, the baked goods, and even the ill-fated chili. Each researcher contributed, bringing their own flair. Ben helped coordinate, offering encouragement, tweaks, and occasionally fire extinguishers. The banquet was a dazzling display. Glowing alien mushrooms were served alongside golden pastries, sauces bubbled in luminescent hues, and even the chili made a cautious appearance, now stabilized and free of gravitational anomalies. Ben sat at the head of the table with Urix and Glorf by his side. "The culinary adventure," Ben declared, raising a glass of synthesized earth wine. They ate, laughed, and marveled at their accomplishments. For the aliens, the journey had revealed more than the resilience of human cuisine. It had shown them the joy of experimentation, the camaraderie of shared meals, and the humor in occasional disaster. And as the night wore on, they toasted to their human guide who had brought chaos, spice, and a taste for the impossible into their lives. It was only later, as the remnants of glowing chili simmered quietly in its containment unit, that anyone noticed a slight hum of resonance building from within the pot. Ben, catching sight of it, sighed and grabbed Glorf by the arm. "Glorf, buddy, please tell me you didn't add more gravity beans." Glorf's eyes widened, but before he could respond, the chili let out a soft pulse of energy. Ben's laughter echoed through the lab as everyone braced for the inevitable. "Well," he said, grinning as the first tremor shook the room, "what's a banquet without a little excitement?" The aliens braced themselves once more, ready to face the chaos of cuisine and anything else humanity's wild ways might bring. The pulsing resonance from the glowing chili built quickly, sending ripples of energy through the lab. Ben and the aliens dove behind counters and tables as the container's vibrations grew louder, glowing ever more brightly. Yurix, his antennae twitching nervously, peeked over the edge of a workbench. "Mr. Wheeler, is this typical of your food preparations?" Ben laughed, a wild spark of delight in his eyes. "Not exactly. This one's special." As the resonance reached a crescendo, Glorf whimpered from his hiding spot. "It wasn't supposed to react like this. I merely wanted it to have depth." "Next time, maybe skip the gravity beans," Ben called back, though his tone was more amused than accusatory. The container holding the chili let out one final pulse before a shock wave of light and flavor burst outward. The energy surge blew open doors, rattled instruments, and unleashed a wave of aromatic heat that engulfed the room. When the flash subsided, everyone slowly emerged from their hiding places, coughing but otherwise unharmed. Ben stood, brushing off chili residue from his shirt. That, he said, still grinning, was one heck of a party trick. Glorf, who had somehow wound up tangled in a cooling coil, blinked in stunned awe. "I do not understand. It exploded yet. It smells delightful." Yurix scanned the remnants of the chili with a cautious motion, detecting no further signs of instability. He turned to Ben, his tone both weary and impressed. "How is it possible that something so volatile still holds culinary potential?" Ben, grabbing a stray spoon, scooped up a remaining bit of the chili. He took a bite, nodded thoughtfully, and then handed the spoon to Yurix. "See for yourself." Yurix hesitated, but his scientific curiosity won out. He took a cautious taste, letting the flavors spread across his sensory receptors. It was complex, spicy, savory, and strangely invigorating. Despite the chaos, Yurix found himself savoring the experience. "Remarkable," he admitted, his mandibles twitching in what might have been a smile. "It is as if the danger itself enhances the flavor." "Exactly," Ben replied, with a satisfied nod. "Humans call it living on the edge. Food's just more interesting that way." As the night stretched on, the crew worked together to clean up the remnants of their culinary adventure, laughter echoing through the lab. Despite the explosions, the burned antennae, and the occasional miniature gravitational anomaly, they had succeeded in their own peculiar way. Human cuisine remained as much a mystery as ever, but the Cosmodiological Inquiry now understood one essential truth: the power of a shared meal, chaotic, unpredictable, and sometimes dangerously spicy, was a universal language. Yurix, now standing with Ben amid the remnants of their culinary chaos, let out a thoughtful hum. "I believe we have much more to learn from your species, Mr. Wheeler." Ben raised an eyebrow, a mischievous gleam in his eyes. "Oh, you have no idea. Wait until I show you human desserts." Yurix's eyes widened in alarm and fascination. "Desserts, are they? Dangerous?" Ben chuckled, clapping him on the back. "Oh, they can be." And as they began preparations for the next round of culinary experiments, the ship hummed with renewed excitement. The Cosmodiological Inquiry was more than ready to embrace the next chapter of human cuisine, one explosion, eruption, or strange gravitational distortion at a time.